When Barron Trump, the youngest son of former President Donald Trump, arrived at the airport alone, dressed casually with his signature towering height, he attracted little attention at first. The 17-year-old had become a private figure since his father left office, rarely seen in public. However, this visit to the airport was about to become an incident that no one could have predicted. As Barron stood in line to check in, he seemed polite and unassuming, not using his family name to seek any special treatment. However, his quiet demeanor did not shield him from the scrutiny of some of the airport staff. A misunderstanding began when one employee mistakenly assumed that Barron was loitering in a restricted area. Despite his attempts to clarify the situation, the staff member insisted that he leave the area immediately. Barron, known for his calm and composed nature, tried to explain that he had a legitimate reason to be there. Unfortunately, his words fell on deaf ears, and the situation escalated. Other employees joined in, demanding that he provide identification or face removal from the premises. Barron, maintaining his composure, showed his boarding pass and ID, but the staff remained skeptical, possibly not recognizing who he was. Things took a turn when one of the employees, perhaps frustrated by Barron's calm resistance, called security. Within minutes, a guard approached, and the conversation became tense. Barron, though towering over most of the staff due to his height, continued to remain respectful and reiterated his reasons for being there. But instead of resolving the issue, the staff decided to escalate it further by asking him to leave the airport entirely. Barron complied without causing a scene, quietly stepping outside while making a phone call. What the staff didn't know was that this simple phone call would change everything. Within an hour, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the airport entrance. Out stepped Melania Trump, looking every bit the former First Lady with her impeccable style and commanding presence. Melania walked straight into the airport, her every step exuding confidence and determination. As she approached the counter, where the staff had confronted Barron, the atmosphere changed instantly. Conversations hushed, and the employees seemed to realize the gravity of their mistake. Without raising her voice, Melania asked to speak to the staff who had interacted with her son. Her tone was firm but calm, emphasizing that there had been a misunderstanding. She clarified that Barron had every right to be in the area where he was initially approached, and that the situation should have been handled with more discretion and professionalism. The staff, now recognizing who they had confronted earlier, began to apologize profusely. Some appeared visibly nervous, likely regretting their hasty decision to involve security. Melania, however, was not there to humiliate anyone. Instead, she used the opportunity to remind them of the importance of treating every traveler with respect, regardless of their appearance or perceived status. In the end, the situation was resolved, and Barron was escorted back inside the airport, this time with the staff treating him with the utmost courtesy. Melania, ever protective of her son, stayed with him until he was comfortably settled and ready to board his flight. The incident quickly became a lesson for the airport staff, emphasizing the importance of professionalism and patience in their interactions. While the situation could have ended with frustration and bitterness, Melania's composed response turned it into an opportunity for reflection and growth. As for Barron, he went on his way as quietly as he had arrived, proving once again that his preference for staying out of the spotlight doesn't mean he's unprepared to handle it when necessary. When Barron Trump initially stepped outside the airport after being asked to leave, the confusion didn't end there. As he waited by the entrance, a group of onlookers began to recognize him. Some took photos from afar, while others whispered among themselves. The buzz began to grow, and soon a small crowd started gathering. One passerby, realizing who Barron was, approached him and asked, "Aren't you Donald Trump's son?" Barron, maintaining his characteristic calmness, politely nodded but kept the interaction brief. However, the attention only drew more curious onlookers, and a few began recording videos on their phones. Meanwhile, a manager inside the airport, who had been informed of the escalating situation, came out to assess what was happening. By then, word had already spread among some of the staff that the teenager they had dismissed was the son of the former president of the United States. Realizing the potential PR nightmare, the manager hurried over to apologize and invited Barron back inside to sort out the issue. However, By that time, the black SUV carrying Melania Trump had arrived. The sight of the former First Lady stepping out of the vehicle immediately silenced the growing crowd. With her unmistakable presence and composed demeanor, Melania approached the entrance. As she entered the airport, the employees who had interacted with Barron earlier scrambled to appear helpful, but their nervousness was evident. Inside, another minor incident was unfolding. Barron's belongings, which had been checked in earlier, had been mistakenly flagged for additional screening. The staff now faced another layer of complication as they attempted to retrieve his luggage without causing further embarrassment. Melania, observing the disorganized attempts to rectify the situation, remained composed but clearly unimpressed. As she waited with Barron, a few other travelers recognized her and began approaching for photos and autographs. Despite the ongoing situation, Melania smiled politely and interacted briefly, but her focus remained on ensuring Barron was treated properly. At one point, a frustrated traveler, unaware of the earlier confrontation, grumbled about the special treatment being given. However, the staff quickly clarified the misunderstanding to avoid any additional drama. Things reached a breaking point when the head of airport security arrived to personally address the matter. He apologized profusely to Melania and Barron, offering to escort them through the VIP lounge to ensure no further disruptions. Melania accepted the apology gracefully but declined the special escort, stating that they only wanted to proceed like any other travelers, provided they were treated fairly. During this time, an older employee who had been with the airport for decades approached Melania and apologized directly. He admitted that the situation could have been handled better from the start and expressed his respect for how she and Barron had conducted themselves. Melania, appreciating the sincerity, responded kindly and even exchanged a few pleasant words with him. As they finally made their way through security, another incident arose. A passenger in the line recognized Barron and began asking invasive questions about his father's political future. Barron, clearly uncomfortable, didn't respond, but Melania stepped in and firmly yet politely reminded the individual that this was not the time or place for such discussions. Her words were brief but effective, leaving no room for further comment. When they reached the gate, the airline staff, having been informed of the earlier incidents, offered to upgrade Barron's seat to first class as a gesture of apology. Melania, however, insisted that the focus should not be on compensating them with perks, but on ensuring that all travelers are treated with fairness and respect. As the plane began boarding, Melania stayed with Barron until the last moment, ensuring he was comfortable before departing. Her protective and composed handling of the situation left a lasting impression not only on the airport staff, but also on the passengers who had witnessed the events unfold. By the time it was over, the staff deeply regretted their actions. The incident became a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that treating every individual with respect and dignity should always be the priority. For Barron, the day might have been inconvenient, but his quiet grace and maturity spoke volumes, showing the world once again that the youngest Trump has inherited his mother's poise and resilience. As Barron and Melania settled at the gate, one final challenge emerged. A traveler, disgruntled by the commotion and the recognition Melania received, loudly voiced complaints about the privileged treatment they believed the Trumps were receiving. The traveler claimed the staff had ignored other passengers to prioritize Barron and Melania, turning the gate area into a scene of unnecessary chaos. Melania, always composed, chose not to engage directly. However, the head of airport operations, who had arrived earlier to mediate, intervened to address the passengers' complaints. They explained that the staff's actions were aimed at rectifying mistakes and ensuring smooth travel for all. Despite this, the disgruntled passenger remained vocal, drawing attention and causing tension in the waiting area. As this was happening, an airport employee hurriedly approached Melania, whispering something to her that made her expression shift slightly. It turned out that Barron's checked luggage had been mistakenly rerouted to another flight. The staff was scrambling to retrieve it, but this new complication only added to the day's issues. Melania, remaining calm but clearly displeased, firmly requested that the situation be resolved immediately, emphasizing the importance of handling every passenger's belongings with care. While waiting for the luggage issue to be sorted, another group of travelers who had recognized Melania approached her and Barron. Some were polite and asked for photos, while others made unsolicited comments about her husband's presidency and policies. Melania graciously handled the polite fans, but when the comments became intrusive, she skillfully redirected the conversation, demonstrating her ability to maintain decorum under pressure. Meanwhile, back at the baggage area, staff members were working to locate Barron's luggage. It had been mistakenly sent to a flight bound for another city, but fortunately, the error was caught before the flight departed. The staff managed to retrieve the suitcase and rushed it back to the gate, just as boarding for Barron's flight began. As Barron prepared to board, a final hiccup occurred at the gate itself. The boarding pass scanner malfunctioned when scanning his ticket, briefly delaying him. The gate agent, flustered by the presence of the former First Lady, apologized profusely and quickly resolved the technical glitch. Melania, standing nearby, watched the scene with an air of patience, though her calm exterior likely masked her growing frustration with the day's events. Before Barron boarded the plane, Melania gave him a reassuring hug and a few words of encouragement. Despite the chaos, she remained the picture of a composed and protective mother. As Barron finally made his way down the jet bridge, Melania stayed at the gate for a moment longer, speaking quietly with the staff. Her final words were a reminder about the importance of professionalism and fairness, no matter who the passenger may be. As Melania exited the terminal, the staff was left to reflect on the day's events. The incidents that unfolded served as a reminder of how easily assumptions and mismanagement can escalate situations unnecessarily. The regret among the staff was palpable, not only for how Barron had been treated, but also for the complications that could have been avoided with better communication and respect. For the travelers who witnessed the drama, it became a story they would recount for years. And for Barron and Melania, it was yet another example of how life in the public eye requires an extraordinary level of patience and grace. As Melania's SUV pulled away from the airport, leaving behind an atmosphere of quiet contemplation, one thing was clear. This was a day the airport staff would not soon forget. As Melania's SUV pulled away, the airport staff thought the worst of the ordeal was over. However, another twist was about to unfold. Shortly after Barron boarded the plane, the pilot announced a slight delay due to security concerns. It turned out that during the earlier mix-up with Barron's luggage, an overly cautious staff member had flagged one of his bags for an additional security check after it had been retrieved. This created confusion, as the bag was already on board, and protocols required a full review before the flight could depart. While Barron was seated calmly in his window seat, unaware of the renewed chaos, the airline staff scrambled to locate and recheck the luggage. Passengers, already annoyed by the delay, began murmuring about the situation. Some speculated that the presence of a high-profile passenger was causing unnecessary disruptions. A few passengers even voiced their frustrations openly, questioning why someone with connections would be allowed to complicate their travel plans. At the gate, the head of security was frantically working to clear up the misunderstanding. The flagged bag was finally retrieved and inspected, only to reveal nothing more than a set of neatly packed clothing and personal items. The process, however, had delayed the flight by nearly 30 minutes, and tensions were rising among the passengers. Inside the plane, a man seated a few rows behind Barron began speaking loudly to those around him, suggesting that privileged families like the Trumps were the reason for the delay. Although Barron stayed quiet, his calm demeanor made him a target for the man's pointed remarks. "Must be nice to hold up everyone else's plans," the man said, loud enough for others to hear. Another passenger, clearly annoyed by the man's behavior, stood up and defended Barron. "He's just a kid," she said firmly. "This delay has nothing to do with him personally. Maybe try having a little patience." Her words were met with nods and murmurs of agreement, silencing the man temporarily. Meanwhile, back in the terminal, Melania, who had decided to stay in the area until Barron's flight took off, was informed of the delay. Upon learning that her son's luggage was the cause, she immediately requested to speak with the head of airport operations. Although visibly frustrated, she maintained her composure and firmly reiterated the importance of handling such situations discreetly and efficiently. After the bag was cleared and the flight was finally ready to depart, another unexpected incident occurred on board. A passenger sitting in the row ahead of Barron accidentally dropped a drink, splashing liquid onto his carry-on bag. The man immediately apologized profusely, but Barron, ever polite, assured him it was no big deal. The cabin crew quickly cleaned up the mess, but the small incident added to the growing list of mishaps for the day. As the flight prepared for takeoff, yet another disruption unfolded. A couple seated near the front of the plane began arguing loudly, causing a minor commotion. While this had nothing to do with Barron, some passengers jokingly remarked that the bad luck surrounding the flight seemed contagious. The cabin crew managed to calm the couple down, and the flight finally took off without further delays. By the time Barron's plane was in the air, the airport staff was left reeling from the chain of events. Employees were already discussing how they would report the day's incidents in their internal logs and how they might avoid similar situations in the future. For Barron, it was likely a day he'd rather forget. However, those who witnessed his calm and respectful demeanor throughout the chaos couldn't help but admire his composure. As the plane climbed into the sky, the lingering thought among the staff was clear. They had underestimated him and his family's ability to handle adversity with grace. For Melania, the event served as a reminder of the challenges her family continues to face, even in everyday situations, and the strength required to rise above them.